Hash the Thanksgiving debt. The smell of cinnamon and nutmeg filled the kitchen as I carefully lifted the pumpkin pie from the oven. Golden brown and perfect, just like the ones Mom used to make before her hands started shaking too much to bake. I had spent 3 hours preparing this dessert, wanting everything to be perfect for our Thanksgiving dinner. After Mom's recent health scare, I thought maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year, my family would finally see me as more than just their personal ATM. I'm Rachel Morrison, 34 years old, a forensic accountant who has spent the better part of a decade building a reputation for uncovering financial fraud in corporate America. My colleagues respect me, my clients trust me, and my success has afforded me a comfortable life in downtown Chicago. But none of that seemed to matter when I walked through the front door of my childhood home in suburban Oak Park. The dining room was already crowded when I entered, carrying my homemade pie. Dad sat at the head of the table in his usual spot, his weathered hands folded over his protruding belly. Mom fidgeted with her napkin, avoiding eye contact as she always did when tension filled the air. My older brother David lounged in his chair with that familiar smirk, while my younger sister Lisa examined her manicured nails with theatrical boredom. And Carol, Mom's sister who lived for family drama, sat primly with her lips pursed in disapproval at something or someone. I had barely set the pie on the table when Dad's fist came crashing down, making every dish jump and rattle. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent room like a gunshot. "Stop it, Rachel. Just stop pretending." His voice was cold, harder than I had ever heard it. "Where's the $50,000? The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at him, my mouth opening and closing without sound. "Dad, what are you talking about?" That's when Lisa launched into her performance. She had always been dramatic, but this was Oscar-worthy. Tears began streaming down her cheeks as she pressed her hands to her chest. "How could you do this to Mom, right after she just got out of the hospital? You know she trusted you with everything." My head spun as I tried to process what was happening. "I don't understand what you're saying. What $50,000? David stood up slowly, crossing his arms over his chest. His voice was calm, measured, which somehow made it more terrifying than if he had been shouting. "We didn't want to believe it either, Rachel, but the bank confirmed it. Online transfer. Only one person had the password to Mom's account." He paused for dramatic effect. "You." I felt the blood drain from my face. "That's impossible. I never. Don't lie to us." Lisa's voice rose to a near shriek. "The evidence is right there. You stole Mom's entire savings account." Before I could respond, David stepped forward and with one swift motion, knocked my carefully crafted pumpkin pie off the table. It crashed to the floor, the ceramic dish shattering into pieces, orange filling splattering across the hardwood like blood at a crime scene. "We don't need anything from a thief," he said coldly. But the worst blow came from Mom herself. Instead of her usual passive silence, she looked directly at me with such disappointment that it felt like a knife to my heart. "How did I raise you, Rachel? To steal your own mother's life savings?" The room spun around me. This couldn't be happening. For years, I had been the reliable one, the one who sent money home every month, who paid for Mom's medical bills without being asked, who covered Lisa's credit card debts and David's mortgage payments when he was between jobs. I was the one who had sacrificed my own relationships because family dinners and family crises always came first. Dad stood up, his finger pointing toward the front door like the hand of an angry god. "I'm giving you 24 hours. Either you return the $50,000, or I'm calling the police and you are never welcome in this house again." And Carol clucked her tongue disapprovingly. "I always said that girl was too ambitious for her own good. Money changes people." I looked around the table at the faces of the people I had loved and supported for so many years. Not one of them showed even a flicker of doubt about my guilt. Not one of them remembered the hundreds of thousands of dollars I had freely given over the years. In that moment, something inside me broke, but it wasn't my heart. It was the chains that had kept me bound to their dysfunction. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door, my heels crunching on the broken ceramic. "I'll get your money," I said quietly, not bothering to look back. The November air was bitter as I sat in my car outside the house where I had grown up. My hands shook as I started the engine, not from cold but from rage that was finally beginning to replace the shock. Instead of driving to some cheap motel to lick my wounds, I used my accumulated hotel points to book a suite at the Palmer House downtown. If my family wanted to treat me like a stranger, I would act like one. The luxurious hotel room was a stark contrast to the chaos I had just escaped. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago River, and the marble bathroom was bigger than Lisa's apartment. I had worked hard for this kind of comfort, and I wasn't going to let false accusations drive me into hiding. I opened my laptop and called Theo, my colleague in the compliance department who owed me several favors. "I need every transaction record from my mother's bank account for the past 6 months. Security footage if they have it, IP addresses, transaction logs, everything." "Rachel, what's going on?" Theo's voice was concerned. This sounds serious. My family is accusing me of stealing $50,000 from my mother's account. I have less than 24 hours before my father destroys my reputation by filing a police report. Jesus. Okay, give me the account information. I'll call in some favors. While I waited, my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Panicking yet? Maybe you should have thought about this before you decided to steal from your own mother. Then another from David. I called your office and spoke to HR. Told them you're having some psychological and financial issues. They should probably keep an eye on you. The audacity was breathtaking. Not only were they framing me for theft, but David was actively trying to sabotage my career. The brother I had bailed out of debt 3 times in the past 5 years was trying to destroy my professional life. My phone rang just after midnight. I've got everything, Theo said. And Rachel, you're going to want to see this. The encrypted files arrived in my email within minutes. I opened the first attachment and felt my blood turn to ice, then fire. Security camera footage from the bank showed David and Lisa at the teller window, bold as brass, making a withdrawal from Mom's account. They weren't even trying to hide their faces. But I didn't stop there. My forensic training kicked in, and I followed the digital money trail. The $50,000 hadn't vanished into thin air. $35,000 had gone directly to pay off David's gambling debts to some very unpleasant people in Cicero. The remaining $15,000 had funded Lisa's recent shopping spree and her Instagram-worthy vacation to Miami, complete with photos of her flashing designer handbags and cocktails on South Beach. The smoking gun was an email David had sent to Lisa just 3 days ago. Just blame everything on Rachel. Mom and Dad always think she's so perfect anyway. It's time they saw her real face. She's rich enough that losing $50K won't hurt her. Consider it payback for all the years she's made us look bad. I printed everything, my hands steady now with cold purpose. The frightened, confused daughter who had fled the Thanksgiving dinner was gone. In her place sat a forensic accountant who had just uncovered a textbook case of elder financial abuse and fraud. I didn't go home the next morning. Instead, I sent a group text to my family. I have your money. Meet me at Henderson's law office at 4 p.m. to settle this. I had been using old Mr. Henderson as the family lawyer for years, paying his fees whenever Mom and Dad needed legal documents prepared. He was a fair man, though I could see the weariness in his eyes that came from decades of dealing with family disputes. When my family arrived at the law office, they looked confident, almost smug. David actually had the nerve to pat me on the shoulder. See, doing the right thing isn't so hard after all. I sat down at the conference table and spread my printed evidence across the polished mahogany surface. You're right, David, it isn't hard at all. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched their faces change as they saw the bank security photos, the transaction records, the email evidence. Lisa's face went white as printer paper. David's jaw muscles twitched as he tried to maintain his composure. These are fake, Lisa stammered. She made these up. I reached for my second phone and put it on speaker. Theo's voice filled the room. Rachel, I forwarded everything to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. With this evidence, they have grounds to prosecute for elder financial abuse under federal statutes. David and Lisa aren't just looking at paying back the money, they're looking at federal prison time. The color drained from Dad's face. Mom began to cry, but this time her tears were from shame, not manipulation. This wasn't a family squabble anymore. This was a federal crime, and they all knew it. I stood up, feeling more powerful than I had in years. Dad, you gave me 24 hours. I used them to find the truth. But you're right about one thing. I won't be coming home anymore. Not because I stole money, but because that house stopped being my home the moment you chose to believe thieves over your own daughter. I turned to Mr. Henderson. I want to remove myself from any inheritance documents and family financial obligations, effective immediately. I don't want anything from these people, and I don't want any legal responsibility for them. Lisa started to protest, but I cut her off. The FBI will be in touch about restitution and charges. I'd suggest you both get good lawyers, though I won't be paying for them this time. I walked out of that conference room and never looked back. 6 months later, I was standing at a podium in a downtown Chicago conference center, delivering the keynote address at a symposium on financial elder abuse prevention. My presentation, titled Protecting Our Seniors, Recognizing the Signs of Family Financial Fraud, had drawn hundreds of attendees from across the Midwest. My phone buzzed during the question and answer session. The caller ID showed Mom. I looked at it for exactly 1 second, then declined the call and continued answering questions from the audience. When I finished to enthusiastic applause, I felt a sense of purpose I had never experienced during all those years of trying to earn my family's approval. David and Lisa had pled guilty to federal charges and were facing restitution payments and probation. Lisa had to sell her designer handbags and move back in with our parents. David lost his house and was working double shifts at a warehouse to pay back the gambling debts that our family's money had temporarily covered. Mom called every few weeks now, always at inconvenient times, always with the same message: family is family, Rachel. We need to forgive and move forward. But forgiveness and trust are different things, and trust has to be earned. I had built a new life, a better life. My work now included pro bono cases helping elderly victims of family financial abuse. I had joined a hiking club and made friends who knew nothing about my family drama and liked me for who I was, not what I could provide. I was dating a fellow accountant named Mark who thought my dedication to my work was admirable, not something that made me too ambitious for my own good. The old Rachel would have answered Mom's calls, would have felt guilty for not rushing back to fix everyone's problems. The old Rachel would have already sent money to help with their legal bills and probably would have found a way to blame herself for the whole situation. But I wasn't the old Rachel anymore. I was someone who had learned that love without respect isn't love at all, and that family members who only value you for what you can give them aren't really family in any meaningful sense. My phone buzzed again as I packed up my presentation materials. This time it was Mark, asking if I wanted to meet for dinner to celebrate my successful speech. I smiled as I typed back yes, then switched my phone to silent and slipped it into my purse. I had learned the most important lesson of my adult life that Thanksgiving Day when my pumpkin pie crashed to the floor. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who will never love you the way you deserve to be loved. The $50,000 had been expensive tuition for that education, but it was worth every penny. As I walked out of the conference center into the crisp Chicago evening, I realized I was no longer the woman who had desperately craved her family's approval. I was the woman who had chosen her own worth over their dysfunction, and that made all the difference in the world.